There we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to these writing slash productivity slash, if you want to, reading sprints. They are very chilled and you can do whatever you want. I'll mostly be using them for NaNoWriMo, but I've got some lovely guests here and we're all working on various writing projects, I think, tonight. So if you want to go around and introduce yourselves and what you'll be working on today, starting with you, Hannah.
Okay, cool. I was like, I always feel like I need to go first, and then I'm like, no, don't be that guy. Hi, I'm Hannah from Ladder M. I am working on a werewolf thriller. I am about 38,000 words in now, and I'm just changing something in chapter 2 because I've done something in chapter 6 that needs something changed in chapter 2, and that won't mean anything to anybody, or even Kelly, who's helping me edit the process. But when she reads it again, then she'll see the change, and then it will matter. So that's
okay. I'm Kelly. I was going to do Nano tonight, but I remembered that I actually really need to do, there's a blog post I need to write, which is a story to coincide with a dog photo shoot, which is a freelance job I got recently. So I need to do my blog post before I can do fun stuff.
Well, I'm doing a boring admin thing. I have to write a blurb, and I hate writing blurbs. I would rather write a whole book than write a very short blurb. So I'm going to write a blurb, so you'll see me pulling faces and frowning, and you'll know when I've got to the actual book because I'll be smiling. And then I'm working on a book which I'm hoping to finish this month because I need to start writing another book next month. No pressure at all. Did you hear this like intake of breath where I was like,
yeah.
I can do this. So I need to write about 30,000 words by the end of November, and I'm now looking at the date and thinking, maybe more like 20,000 would be more realistic, but I don't know. So boring blurb and then work in progress, which is sort of my usual gothic, creepy, murdery thing.
Love that.
Love it. And I will be starting off by doing some planning structure work that I need to do based on feedback for my novel in verse, which is a young adult contemporary about a teenager who needs to hitchhike across Australia to reach her mum before she dies. So very fun. And then I will be switching to my sci-fi Afrofuturist Frankenstein retelling. And I'm thinking, even though NaNoWriMo is supposed to be one project, I was talking to Hannah just before we hopped on, I might still count the words of the young adult one because I am very behind on NaNoWriMo.
I feel like all words count, and trying to force, you're not going to write 2 books in the month, are you? So why not write 2 parts of them? I think that sounds fair. And nobody's going to test you on it apart from anybody who watched this.
Well, it was really funny. Olivia, before we started, said, I don't know if that's like the law. And I was like, firstly, Nano isn't the law. You're not going to get arrested. Like, it doesn't matter. It just matters to us because we're super competitive, not because it's actually like, and I mean, like ourselves as opposed to with each other. We would actually ruin our friendship if Olivia and I tried to like write against each other. That's what we can.
We can read against each other, but we cannot write against each other. We have limits.
Hi, everyone. You'd all beat me in terms of word counts. I'm terrible. I'm just like slogging away small daily word count on top of small daily word count, and they eventually add up to a book.
But that's the whole, I think that's the thing, is it's consistency, isn't it? Because I don't get an opportunity to write very often because I've got work. So when I write, that's when I tend to get my head down. And I was saying to Olivia, my target for today is 7,000 words. Now that's editing as well as new words. So that's not like I've got to write 10,000 words in one go, but I'm more likely to get that done this evening than I am throughout the week if I try and do little bits, because it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I struggle to be consistent with writing, but when I do write, I hammer it all out. But I kind of wish I was like a 1K a day person doing the whole slow and steady wins the race thing. That is my ideal that I'm always striving to and never achieving.
I just have to, because my toddler goes to bed at the same time every day and I have that slot to write. And if I'm tired, it kind of ends at 9 o'clock. If I'm feeling good, I just carry on going until I go to bed, basically. And that's me until he goes to school. So I chose to do this myself. Yes.
We have a toddler and then our writing becomes steady.
Well, I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know how I feel about unlocking that super skill. I don't know how I feel about. Having said that, every author friend of mine that's like a fully like traditional author has kids, and I'm like, that must be it. That must be where I'm going wrong.
My friend is a doctor in something very, very clever that I can't even explain to what it is because she's so clever to do genetics and stuff. And she said that time poor people are the most efficient. And I think that that's true sometimes. Like if literally you have a job and you have a child and the time you can write in a day is 1 hour, you will write for that hour. Whereas if you've got 5 hours that night, you're like, I might write in a couple of hours. I might read for a bit and then scroll TikTok. And before you know it, it's bedtime. So yeah, since she told me that, I was like, yes, that's true. And I'm going to stick with it because I need to keep being efficient and keep getting the words down.
Yeah, that's fair. That makes sense to me. Although I saw this thing that was like, if you think you might have ADHD, and of course everyone who's on TikTok for more than 5 minutes might think they've got ADHD, if you put your shoes on, even if you're not leaving the house, you're more likely to be productive. So I got up this morning and put shoes on. I got so much done. I was like, this works. So I've kept my shoes on so I can write because I'm like, that's the key.
Oh, I think I'm going to try that at some point. Although I like putting my feet up and in weird positions when I'm writing, so that might be bad with shoes. Like, it might ruin all my furniture.
Well, I say I'm wearing shoes. I'm wearing Uggs, which are basically just outside slippers, aren't they, really? Like, but they feel like shoes, and that's the mentality. Is I could leave the house at any minute. I won't, but I could.
Living life on the edge.
All day, every day.
But on that note, shall we start with our first writing sprint? I am a big fan of the warm-up writing sprint, so 30 minutes to get us going. Sounds good?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. And please tell me off if I haven't done a blurb in that time, it's not acceptable. So hold me to account at the end of this. If I've gone on TikTok and rebelled against my blurb, that's not allowed.
See, I don't follow you on TikTok, so I won't know unless you actually post something, and then I'll be like,
no. You'll see though. You can tell when I'm on TikTok because I turn into like this kind of glazed expression, and you see the TikTok eyes, don't you? Like the kind of flickering as I'm flicking through videos. So yeah, don't let me do that, please, anyone.
If I look angry, I'm working on my project. If I've got any other expression, I'm not. I'm on TikTok. It's like if I look really grumpy, because I caught sight of myself last week, just as I was kind of like flipping through, and I was like, Hannah, you look so miserable. And it's like, I'm just concentrating, but I look so miserable. So that's how you'll know me.
Well, we all have to own up at the end of it. If anybody else would like to, if you're like me and have no self-control, and also I've got a little reward for myself. I bought this cross stitch set where I get to cross stitch a little horror character if I am good and I write. This is what I need to get me through November. So tonight I'm going to cross stitch those places if I write 5 minutes. That's my treat.
Amazing.
Adore it.
This is all the secrets. This is how I managed to write 2 books.
I'm making notes of all of them. I'm like, right, reward with cross stitch.
Have a toddler, reward with cross stitch. Yeah. Yeah. So far, it's going okay.
Okay, so we're going to go until 10 past.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Cool. See you then. That's the end of our first sprint. I'm just going to finish this sentence.
That was quick.
Yeah, that was quick, wasn't it? How did it go? How are people feeling? How are word counts doing?
Surprisingly good. I always think sprints bring out the best in me. Like I actually concentrate and do something. I did my little blurb. I've done like a first draft, so I'm gonna leave it there and come back to it tomorrow and write a few hundred words as well somehow. So yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. Just gonna mute
Nice.
myself. I'm about to cough, so I will come back in a second.
How did it go for you, Kelly?
You're muted, Kelly.
I wrote 127 words of the blog post, which is basically halfway because it needs to be 200 to 300 words. But I have to go and find example posts like of the previous format, like previous posts from the blog in that format to see what they actually want because like the brief's not super clear. But yeah, I get to look at cute pictures of dogs, so it's a good time.
There are worse jobs.
Yeah. And I
And how
just have
about
to read
you,
about
Hannah?
how sweet he is and like
How
all the tricks
sweet
that
they
he
are.
can do. You know,
Cute.
it's tough.
Well, that's fair. That's fair. Well, I managed to edit 1,500 words, and I have added another 180 words. So it's a start.
Yeah, good.
Good progress. And I managed to finish editing the planning structure doc, which was like 150 words, and then proceeded to write an over 500 word email to my mentor explaining why I've made those changes. And I still need to edit the timeline to fit so that the changes I've made to the plot actually fit in. So that's what I'm going to do in the next sprint and then hopefully be done with the novel and verse. And hopefully not write another 500 words explaining how I've edited the timeline. Yeah.
Did you say that's for a course you're doing or a mentoring program?
It's a mentoring program. I've got a mentor who is helping me through my novel in verse and the next round of edits for that. So, yeah, hoping to get that final draft of it by sometime early next year.
Awesome. That's the first big thing I did for mine. With Mina and the Undead, I got on Write Mentor, and wasn't called that then, but it was kind of the book that you would read now. And yeah, that really pushed me. I found having a deadline and having somebody that I was kind of accountable to was really motivating. So have you found it useful so far?
Yes, again, for the deadline reasons. And also, I think it's been good to, because I'm naturally a poet, so also for writing a novel in verse, it very much bridges into the emotional, internal side of things. And she's like, this is really great, but she needs some like external threats as well. And that's been actually really helpful.
Yeah, that sounds great. It sounds like you've got a good person as well who's pushing you and kind of helping you to identify the stuff that you need to do. So very good.
There is one little push for like, put a romance storyline in there. I'm like, no, it's not happening. Not me.
If it's not you, I really wouldn't. I mean, I know people who do that, like literally with the business themselves. You need this to fit in with this particular brand that we're going for you, and so it's a tricky one because at some point you sometimes get pushed into stuff like that. Yeah, I think as long as you can stick to exactly what you want to run through it, especially now when you're not writing it for a particular, like, you know, a particular imprint or something that wants a specific thing. It's hard. It's interesting how people still are pushing for that. I thought we'd kind of moved.
I think it's got to do with one of the storylines where having a romantic interest would add to the storyline, but I'm just trying to talk around my book. I just think that with that kind of storyline, we often see things heading certain ways because there is a romantic lead to drive it, and it would be nice. I think it would be refreshing to not have that as a motivating factor, which is partly why the email is 500 pages long, because I'm trying to explain why I think it's a good idea not to have that element in it.
I think that's fair, because I think there's so many times when, like, if I read a YA and it doesn't have a romantic subplot, I'm like, I didn't even know these existed. These exist. And it's like, it's a nice, refreshing thing. And that's not to say that I don't love a romantic subplot, but like it's interesting because the romantic subplot in my book, I'm actively subverting. Like, it's romantic, but to a point, and then it's not romantic anymore. And it's one of those things where I've done that on purpose because I love a romantic subplot, but I really love a plot twist. So it's like I've got to balance the two, you know?
And I think I'm going to bring up Mina and the Undead. I think
Thank you.
there is still room for there to be fun stuff that you don't always see within the romantic thing. Like, one of the things that I really liked about Mina, which is one of my favorite things, is that the couple get together pretty fast, and it's not insta love, not saying like the romance, they're suddenly in love. No, they just actually like start dating or like trying to see each other, and then they have to work together. And I'm like, wow, we don't actually see them like get to this level with their romantic partners in young adult, because it's like kiss at the end of the book, and that's as far as a romantic development can get. So it's kind of refreshing to see different things happening.
Thank you. I just really wanted that to be realistic. I remember when I was a teenager, I was like, oh, I think he's really cute. I might kind of want to go out with him, but I don't dare say anything, so I'm going to be really awkward for a little while. And like, I just kind of wanted it to be believable. I didn't want them to see each other and be like, oh, star-crossed lovers, you know, love at first sight, and we intensely, immediately love each other. Like, I didn't experience that as a teenager until kind of my late teens. When I met my husband, I did like fall pretty fast. But I know that's not everyone's experience. I wanted to kind of write something that felt believable, I think, because I don't know, although it's like paranormal fantasy, I didn't want that element to feel fantastical. I want the real world elements to feel real, if that makes any sense. And then you can put vampires and stuff in as well.
That makes
That's
sense.
fair.
Seeing how everyone else is doing. That sounds like a very on-point title. I love that last name.
Peter Alpo. That's so good.
Hello to everyone who's joined in. Never too late.
Tasha.
Nice. Looking forward to seeing the vlog. I feel like one of my videos went up just before the sprint, or like during the sprint.
It did. I managed to squeeze it in just before, and I was really worried because I was sat here watching it on my phone, and I was like, I was sat here waiting in the background anyway, and I was like, I know what's going to happen. I'm going to be like midway through your video, you're going to throw me up, and I'll be like, shh, I need to finish this. Especially because you tagged me, so I was like, well, I have to see. What do you mention? What did happen?
You contributing to my book calling issues.
Standard. Like, this one's from Hannah. Yes, it is. This is from me.
I also realized that I got Unhaul books from Hannah, and Hannah, when Simone was subtitling it, and she was like, I don't know which Hannah you were referring to with each of these things. I was like, oh
Any of
yeah,
them?
gotta love Hannah's.
Too many Hannahs. I literally said, I was watching Beth's Patreon sprints the other day, and they were talking about like popular names, and I was like, yeah, but there are Hannahs everywhere. There were 6 Hannahs in my class at school. I know 3 Hannahs as an adult. We're everywhere. We are just everywhere. So feel free to refer to me as anything. It's fine. Just whatever.
I'm also gonna, before we go into another sprint, throw out the question of what is your favorite thing to write? Like, which part, which character, what is your favorite thing when it comes to writing?
On the subject of romance, building up a romance and then finally getting to the bit where they kiss and trying to like describe that in a way that isn't just and they kiss. I like the kind of trying to explain like what's going on, like sensory wise, and like what the hands are doing, stuff like that, which sounds really weird, but I like the kind of reading the end of that and thinking I've done it well is really fun. Not the big action scenes. They're the headache of my life. I always have one, at least one. I think in book 2 I have 3, and they make my head hurt. I like them.
Well, then, maybe you and I need to work together then, because I love writing choreography. Like,
Okay,
whether it's a
please.
fight scene, whether it's like just kind of general like stage direction of where my characters are going to go, what they're doing. My characters are always fidgeting. They fidget as much as I do, so I'm always adding stuff like that. But when it comes to writing like kissing, I would love to be able to go and they kiss and then just move on to the next bit, because I want them to kiss. I don't want to have to sit there and go, is that cringe? Am I cringy? Is this cringe? Because when I read romance, that's the thing that gets me, is very much, I don't know enough about romance writing to really know beyond, okay, did it make me cringe or not, to decide whether it's a good romance or not. Like, that's it. That's the polar opposites kind of thing. So yeah, no, I love writing. But my favorite thing to write is probably dialogue. I love writing a good argument, especially if the argument or conversation is going one way because a character knows something another character doesn't, and then there's like that moment of realization. I love that. That's like my favorite thing to write.
I'm writing a scene like that at the minute where a character's playing the long game, and I'm trying to, like, because it's the first draft, I'm trying to not give away to the other characters what he's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is fun.
How about you, Kelly?
Yeah, I love writing dialogue. And my nano project is a childhood friends to lovers story.
Oh.
So like there's a lot of pining, and I'm really enjoying writing the pining, and it's dual POV, but I don't want to, and it's one character who knows they're in love, one character who's realizing that they're in love, like that they've always been in love, but like the realization's just hitting now. So it's been very fun kind of trying to figure out the pacing of them realizing what all these things mean, and then the other one saying things to like lay the seed so that you know how they see this other person, but without just on the first page coming straight out and being like, oh, I'm in love with my best friend. Yeah, I'm enjoying all of that a lot.
Nice. I love a good friends to lovers. It's like one of my favorite romance tropes, so that sounds good. And also, just to throw it out to anybody who's reading in the chat, what is your like favorite thing to read? But I'm also going to extend the question for you, Kelly, because Amy and Hannah kind of mentioned what they don't like to write. So what do you not enjoy writing?
It's not that I don't enjoy it. I just feel like I'm not good at, like Hannah said, writing direction. Like I'm not good at that. So what I'm trying to do at the moment is, because I'm really bad at writing consistently and sticking with an idea. So what I'm working on at the moment, I've written more in the last like 2 months than I've written in the last 2 years that I've been working on the story. Because one of my friends pushed me to just be like, just focus on one thing and just write it. And when you get stuck, don't just go on to another thing that's easier for you to write, like work through it. So now I'm trying to remind myself that like, I'm not even considering it draft 1, like this is draft 0. The important thing is just that I write and that I get the story out. So I have like 2 chapters that have just been entirely dialogue, because I couldn't conceive any like directions around them, any internal monologue or anything. Yeah, so I think I'm really good at dialogue, very here for dialogue. Everything around that is a struggle for me.
Maybe you need to write it like a script then and produce it so it reads like a script.
At this point,
And then
I'm
it's just
seriously
done.
just like,
And then it's just like,
yeah. I'm like, why am
not?
I trying to write a book? I should just write a movie.
Well, yeah, I mean, either that or just do it as like, what is the phrase when it's like not your standard form? What am I trying to say? When the structure's all weird. When it's not your standard prose. Anyway, there's a word for it. I can't remember what it is, but there's a word for it where you write your book. And it's not novel in verse, but it's something where it's a particular form that you like lean into. It's like mixed media, but it isn't mixed media. And it's going to irritate me that I now can't remember what it is. But I will also say that I think it's irony that you're like, oh, I really struggle to focus on one thing when you have specifically said to me that I'm only allowed to work on one thing until I finish it. And you're like, I find that really hard. Yeah, Kelly, so do I. Do you have any idea how many book ideas I've had since I asked you to take on this project with me? So many ideas. And I'm not allowed to work on any of them.
Do you have an endpoint that both of you are trying to get to, or like whether it's a deadline in terms of what you want the project to be, or when, or because I find that really useful. Like this is when, and this is what I want to accomplish from this thing.
So for my personal, I want to get this done. I've been working on it since my master's. It's the one that I was working on during my master's, and I kind of just want to get it out there now. For myself, I want it done, my final bit before Kelly goes through and does like a full line edit, etc., by the end of November, first week of December if I have to, just so that Kelly's got loads of time to kind of work on it. And then once that final draft is done, we can start promoting it, because we're going to self-publish it. So it's not necessarily going to have like a 2-year wait on it to be done. It will just depend on work and life and things like that. But it will all be ready to go pretty much by, probably about March, April time. Which is exciting and terrifying.
It's the really exciting thing with self-publishing, because the thing I'm writing now, I mean, this is like an in-between project, so it's not for anybody or contracted or anything. If it did get contracted, it'd probably come out in like 2 or 3 years or something. So, yeah, I get that feeling. It's nice to know that you have got a kind of exact point and you're fully in control of that process.
Yeah, it's nice, and it's really rewarding when you can kind of see it and it's out and stuff. Because I found with Bridesmaid Survival Guide that I did pretty much all on my own, and then got kind of proofread. So it's really rewarding, and it's really weird when it's like, oh, people are still buying that, people are still reading that, but I released that ages ago. Like, why are you still talking about that? But yeah, so with this one, it's more just a case of, I know I won't be able to focus on anything else until I'm done with this one. Even if it's like, okay, this is just the final draft and it goes in a drawer and we don't self-publish it, which is really unlikely. But even if that's the case, then I just don't want to have to touch it again anymore, because I can't focus on other stuff whilst I keep playing with it. So I just need to get it out of the drawer and done.
I'm like the exact opposite, where I like to have multiple things that I'm working on at the same time. But that is because my favorite thing to do in the writing process is edit. So when the first draft is done and I can mess around with it and tweak it and make it better, I hate writing a first draft. I especially hate having to describe a room. I'm one of those readers who like doesn't imagine anything. So then anything that's not characters or dialogue, I really struggle with. So I like to kind of have a project that's being edited and one that's first draft, which is kind of what I'm doing here today with the like editing the novel in verse, but writing the first one so that I can do fun writing, or like fun writing to me, and then still be actually getting something to the point where I'll be able to have fun editing it at some point.
That's cool.
How about you, Kelly? Have you got like an end point that you want to get to with yours? Like, is there something you want to achieve out of it, or like what you want it to be by the end?
I mean, eventually I want it to be a full-length novel, but I'm putting very little pressure on myself with the length of the first draft. Like, I just want to get, because I also, as I have kind of an outline in my head, but I'm not great with plotting. Like, I'm 100% a pantser. So I do kind of know where the story's going, but I don't have it very like heavily structured. So at this point, I think I'm on about 10k words, and I'm about a third of the way through the story. So I know that my first draft is going to be very, very short, but I just want like the story done. And I think that's kind of my goal for this year, is to just have that draft done, know what the story is, and then go back next year and kind of flesh it out and build it up.
Do you know what you want to do with it once you've done that? Are you just writing it for you, or are you kind of thinking you might like try and publish it or something?
Yeah, publishing is the dream. I think I'm very much open to self-publishing if I like. Yeah, I think I might try to pursue traditional publishing at first, but then I'm super open to self-publishing it when it's done, if I think it's good enough.
I don't know if it should be allowed to whether you think it's good enough, Kelly, because I know how self-deprecating you are. I think maybe your friend that's getting you to help write it and like pushing you, maybe let them decide.
I mean, I'll give it to you at some point as well.
That's also what I was angling for sure.
I thought you were referring to yourself when you said you were
No,
a
I
friend.
wasn't. No,
Oh, yes, so did I.
no, someone else. I will absolutely take any like works in progress. The one thing I really miss from doing my masters is feedbacking on other people's work, and it's been really nice having so many readers and like other writers feedback on my work, but for some reason no one's like sending me their stuff to work on, and I can only assume it's because I keep telling everyone I'm really busy and not because I'm really mean in my comments or anything, because I'm really not. I remember there was one girl I worked with called Louise. She was amazing, and she wrote this really twisted psychological thriller set in a boarding school, and I loved it. And I really there was only like a couple of things where I was like, this scene comes in a bit early, or I don't know, am I supposed to like this character or not? Because I can't quite put my finger on it. And she's like, that's kind of the point. I was like, fine, don't worry about it. But there were times when I was like, I just love this. And I just started putting like GIFs of like people being like chef's kiss and stuff in the little annotations bit. Because I was like, I've got nothing to contribute. This is great. Top tier, 10 out of 10.
This is the feedback I'm missing out on. Just feedback I need.
I've saved every bit of feedback Kelly has sent me. And I've gone through all of the edits and put all the improvements in, but all the times that Kelly has been like, what is happening? And I love this. And ooh, I've saved those. So that anytime I'm like, oh, I don't know if this is working. Like, is this any good? I just like get the ego boost. It's there. It's ready to go.
That's what I'm aiming to do.
You're doing a great job.
I
Definitely need a friend like Kelly to read their stuff, obviously.
I mean, I'm always open to reading stuff for people.
Okay, I think we're going to hop into our next sprint, but I think this is a good shout of like making a little feedback group and seeing if people are happy to read and feedback on people's writing, because it can be so helpful, especially when you are not doing creative writing, because last time we were talking about how many of us have studied creative writing or did courses and such, and then when you don't have that anymore, writing can become a bit lonely. Obviously not when you're on a live stream, like writing with all your friends. But yes, let's hop into another sprint for 45 minutes and then see how it goes.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
I'm probably only gonna last like half an hour, because I forgot that your clock's changed, so I'm now 2 hours behind you. Yeah, so I think I'm probably about half an hour in. I'm just gonna dip out.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks
See you
for
soon.
joining.
It was nice to chat to you.
Yeah, lovely.
Okay. That's right, until 1:15. Lizzie's also, when I was saying like we should get a feedback group, I was thinking like, and there's going to be some people in the chat who will definitely want to join it.
Lizzie's got great feedback, but she is absolutely not backwards in coming forwards. And there was like, I had, I've told this story before, but it kills me every time. I had this real hang up about writing sex scenes because as part of like Love Story, that was one of the things that we studied, was writing like a decent sex scene. And my lecturer was basically like, yours is really vanilla. And it's like, it's one thing thinking that you might be bad at sex in real life. It's worse getting feedback on your fictional sex as well. Like that hurts. So I like tried writing a couple of scenes and I got Lizzie to read one, and her response was, yeah, I could tell you were uncomfy. And I was just like, oh, okay, great. Thanks, Lizzie. And then when I sent her something else, she was like, oh, this is much better. And she's like a lot nicer about it. And I was like, no, the damage is done. I'm never sending you sex scenes ever again.
Hi, right way, we just like fade to black when it
Yeah, just like,
and they got into bed. End scene. Yeah.
I love.
I mean, I know that's how I used to be. I've read some YA recently where I've been like, oh, it didn't fade; it just kept on going. But that's not the kind that I've written yet.
No, that's
yeah.
fair.
Who knows what that'll be like for me? I think kissing is fine. I'm not sure how to feel about describing everything.
Well, like I said, I was like, and kiss, like that's where I wanted to leave it, but no, like okay, so it's a whole thing.
Note to self: when I start writing sex scenes, don't let Lizzie read it until I'm really happy with it.
Just don't tell her you wrote it. Just be like, oh, I found this. What do you think?
Found a sex scene. Do you want to read it?
Yeah, no, to be fair, she is not the target audience. I do appreciate that. Anyway,
I also want to say that I appreciated the cat's tail.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Azriel's tail. Just like
anytime I'm on sprint, he will find a way to make an appearance.
We love it.
Okay, let's write until 20.
Okay, great.
Cool.
That's the end of the second sprint. And we open.
Well, I managed 2,000 edited words that time. I didn't remember to track how many new words there were, but I'm really happy with how it's all kind of coming together because I was really worried because this is like a rewrite anyway. I'm already changing one character to a completely different character, and I'm kind of amalgamating like roles that other characters had into this one character, and I was worried it wasn't working. So I'm now going back and changing their perspective on something, and I was worried that it wouldn't work. But it is working. I've just made my life more complicated than I need to. But that's fine. That's standard Hannah. So
Sounds pretty standard writing, to be honest. I found that I spend as much time like unpicking the messes I've made than I do actually creating new good ideas. But yeah, I think I've hit my daily word count and kind of gone over it, which is unusual for me. So thank you for that. I think I've written about 1,200 or 300 words. But like you said, I kept doing a really annoying thing going, oh, this would be a good idea for a future scene, like skipping ahead, making a quick note, and then going back and being like, what was I writing again? And I did that about 5 times. So if you saw me pulling faces, it was just faces at myself.
that's fair. I closed the wrong tab at one point and just disappeared. So
It's like heart-stopping moment. Like, did I save what I needed to save? Oh gosh. How about you, Olivia?
Back on. Good. I finished the timeline and I did 440 words to the timeline, and then I took a little break to like go on Twitter because I was struggling to get into writing, like switching modes so quickly. So I had a bit of a break, and then I wrote 550 words of
Wow.
the Afrofuturist one, which is good. I was hoping to write 2,000 words in total this sprint, and I'm almost there. I need to write 400, which I definitely think I could do in the next sprint.
nice.
That was really impressive. I
getting
wish I
very
could
tired
write that
now.
much in that time. Just can't do it. I'm so slow.
Slow and steady, slow and steady. Seeing how everyone's doing. Yes, that's the good thing about audiobooks.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Wow, well done, Lizzie.
It's embarrassing, right? She reads like 80 pages a minute and she writes 3,000 words. Like she puts us all to shame all the time. Speed demon, which is really funny because she's really little, so she doesn't move very fast, but she can type very fast and she can read very fast.
Different superpowers for different people.
I'm just jealous, that's all it is.
We know you love Lizzie. It's fine.
I do love Lizzie. I do love Lizzie.
Good to see studying getting done. I do not miss studying, but I'm sure it's all for a good cause.
Nice.
That's really good as well.
Love that number. I love that number.
Yeah, it is good. I had a moment of appreciation of it as well. Maybe I should set that as my daily target. That'd be really satisfying, wouldn't it?
Like 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Lizzie's was close because it was 396, and I was like, if it had been 369, I'd have really enjoyed that as well. But
yeah, that is good.
It's the little things for a little brain.
No, I'm there too. I used to write dates on the board at school when I was teaching, and I was like, if it was ever something like, I don't know, like 12th of the 12th, 12, I was like, oh my gosh, can we just enjoy this for a minute? And the kids all went, what? No, not bothered.
Don't care. Yeah, magical powers, genuinely. But to be fair, so Lizzie has been using an online app to track all their words and stuff. Not NaNoWriMo, but like a writing app. And it has saved all of her book projects, all the novels that she wants to write, saved all of those. But the other day, it just deleted 4,000 words of the fanfic that she's writing.
Oh.
And she was devastated. And I don't really deal well with devastation. So I was like, I don't want to make jokes. Like, it's not funny. I know I'd be absolutely devastated. But my brain was also going, it could have been worse. Like, it could have been your novel that you lost. But like, my question, if you don't mind me positing a question to you guys, Olivia, how do you protect your work? How do you kind of make sure that doesn't happen? Because I feel like this is every writer's worst nightmare, is losing something so early in the process that it isn't like you haven't sent it to someone else to protect it, kind of thing.
I email it to myself every day if I remember. I've tried different things like memory sticks, but I get really confused which one I'm working on, and I end up with all different versions because I'm not good at like saving stuff in new dates. Like I literally just gave it a new date today, and I was like, it's a month since I've done that, so everything I've done this month is just all in the same version. So yeah, emailing, I feel like hopefully Gmail is safe, crosses everything. Don't know, how about you, Olivia? Have you got anything better than that, or Hannah?
I tend to do the emailing as well. I also send things to my sisters pretty often for feedback, so it's on WhatsApp in some cases. But yes, got very serious about backing up ever since when I was like in school. I was writing this series of middle grade books, and one of them was on this mini laptop, which was on the bed. I sat down without thinking about it, like
Oh.
jump sat down, broke the mini laptop, which was a shared laptop, and proceeded to lose a whole novella, which was like in the
No.
middle of the series. And ever since then, I was like, it's never going to be in one place. It's going to be in
Multiple places. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I have, it was going to be really funny because I was going to be like, I've got somewhere safe that I save it. I can't find it because I was like, I've put it somewhere safe and then I couldn't find it, but it's here. I've got one of those like portable hard drives. And I've put a little house sticker on it. So these houses are an art installation down in Folkestone. So they've got loads of these little, like, they look like little playhouses, but there's one that's like floating in the harbour. So it's a sticker of that. That's how I know it's from this year because I bought this sticker this year. So this has all of my stuff from this year. And then I have an older one that is kind of from everything before this year. So that's how I've done it. So my Bridesmaid Survival Guide, Fat Lip, and the rest of that series is saved on the other one. And then this is just kind of my current projects and things like that. And it should be within 5 feet of my desk at any given moment. But yeah, I did panic a little bit then because I was like, I could have sworn it was in my drawer and then it wasn't in my drawer and it wasn't, it was on the side. But yeah, that's how I do it because I was like, I just don't want to risk it. Because there was a girl on my course who her computer crashed the day she was supposed to hand in 10,000 words. And to me, that is my absolute nightmare. And you know, when you had to like hand in, like you'd have to like hand in your entire dissertation and it had to like all be bound and stuff. I sent mine to a professional printer to get it done because I did not trust that if I rocked up and tried to use the uni printers like everyone else, that I would A, get anywhere near any of them, B, the printer would actually be working and would actually let me do all the stuff. So I sent it off to a professional printer, got 3 of them, just like standard, like as if you would print at home, but got professionals to do it. Printed it. It came in a little cardboard box, which I loved. And then I handed that in instead. And I just had to sit there for 3 hours whilst I waited for my friend who had lost her entire thing, argue with the man at PC World because he wouldn't take her hard drive out so that she could put it into another laptop or put it into like a hard drive reader. Because it would destroy the laptop and she wasn't insured. And I was like, that is my absolute worst nightmare. So, yeah.
It can be horrible. I also had a diss story, which was not fun. I didn't have to print anything because I was pandemic year diss, but I did do a bunch of research to get my plan set. So I think I just started writing the like introduction bit and then I spilled tea on my laptop and destroyed it. So the laptop is dead. I lost some, but I didn't lose a lot. Like it wasn't the worst, or the work wasn't too far in. It wasn't too painful, but it was like a very stressful 3 days of like, what have I lost? Thankfully, I knew I hadn't lost any writing. But I was like, have I lost everything else? Just technology.
It's so scary because it's a creative thing, isn't it? And it's like, can I actually replicate that again? Especially when it's such a huge chunk. If it's a whole book or a whole story or novella, you're just not going to write it the exact same way. It terrifies me. I do like the fact that I've got critique partners, and obviously I sent it to my agent and my publisher, so I feel like it's nice that it's gone all over the place. And because emails are dated, I think that's really useful too, that I can, if I ever mess up, which I do frequently, like am I on the newest version, I can kind of retrace my steps and figure it out usually.
Yeah,
that is just so annoying, Lizzie.
Yeah.
I've been there with like Google Docs and stuff where it's like you've crossed out of it and then you come back in and you're like, that didn't save.
Especially things you trust to save.
Mm.
and it's supposed to be the safe option.
Nuts.
That's the
I
thing
was
with
also
modern
gonna-
tech, isn't it? It can be so good for writing, but so terrifying, like that it isn't in that paper form you've just written. I suppose writing by hand. I think we've all probably read the Jane Austens and stuff where there's like young author who finishes her masterpiece and then like somebody spills water on it or steals it or it like
It's-
blows away in the breeze.
I was
or
going to say,
something.
have you guys seen Love Actually, where he's working and he's got like this beautiful view?
Yeah, that's probably what I'm
like-
thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, he's in both. He's Darcy twice, so I can absolutely understand why you get that mixed up. But yeah, that scene in Love Actually where he's got this beautiful typewriter and he's got all his notes, and then she moves the glass that is like an empty glass, and his entire manuscript just flies into the lake. Yeah,
I love
mean,
how they'd kind of said that that's like they'd kind of joked that it was pretentious and he was old fashioned and stuff, and then he just got the pure comeuppance for that. That's like such a nightmare. Have you read Misery as well? Like on a slight read?
I've seen the film. I haven't read the book
Because there's stuff to do with scripts in that. I mean, the kind of torture side of it is pretty awful as well. But the stuff that she does to his writing is really bad too. Yeah, you should read it. It's really good, and it's quite interesting to read it as a writer, like because he's kind of, I don't know if people know the premise of it. I didn't until I read it, but he is writing basically under duress of this woman who is his biggest fan and wants him to write something. And it's quite interesting, like what he's going through in his mind, as well as the kind of the horrible situation he's in. Looking at him as a writer, I quite enjoyed. It's a really bleak book otherwise, but you can glean some good stuff from it. Oh, that's interesting.
I did used to write by hand, like the children's middle grade Christmas book that I'm also editing. I originally wrote by hand while I was boarding class. So then I just wrote it in bits and pieces.
I write plans by hand sometimes. Like I do mind maps and stuff like that. And I occasionally, if I'm stuck, start like kind of jotting down ideas and questions by hand to kind of trick my brain. But yeah, generally I use laptop now.
I will write the evidence down because I will remember something easier if I write it down. If I type something, I can forget it 5 minutes later, which is why occasionally there'll be the same sentence twice in the same paragraph because I haven't remembered that I've written that down. So I have a notebook that is exclusively the evidence that builds up the thriller and the mystery because I'm like, I need to write it down because I need to remember what the detective knows at that point. And I only write it down chronologically, so like as she finds it out, because otherwise I'm like, I know this thing, she doesn't know it yet. So it's just a way of kind of tracking what she knows and what I know, because that's really hard. That's really hard being like, I want to tell you what happened, but that's kind of the whole point of this book. So yeah.
I do that to track character progression and stuff like that. Like I find every mention, like say in book 1, it was every mention of Mina's mum. And I pulled them all out onto one Word document, and then I like hand wrote a summary of it just to check that everything was consistent, because I find it really hard keeping track of what everybody's doing, and like especially things that you say they've done in the past. If it's not happening in the action, the little tiny throwaway details can be quite painful to try and remember.
Yeah,
I do type up those details, but I do have a list of characters and I cross out as they get killed off because I keep forgetting who's dead, and I'll just randomly reanimate them because I'm like, this is something that character would say, and then I'm like, actually, she's dead now. So
she can't say that.
I find I have the opposite problem. I have quiet characters, so I find I've got to the end of a draft and I'm like, oh, there were basically 2 or 3 interesting people in this. I need to go back, and sometimes people are a placeholder when I'm first drafting. Like I know in my current thing, there's 2 characters that have quite a pivotal role in the kind of reveal, but they don't do anything in the book to deserve it at the minute. So I need to make them deserving.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know I'm going to have to do that, some sort of handwriting, kind of sorting that out later on in the process. But that's future problem.
That's fair. That's fair. To answer V's question, I believe so. She got a decent grade, so she must have got it from somewhere. And I think because we were feedbacking on stuff every couple of weeks, she at most she would have had a version that was 3 weeks old. So what we had each term, we had to write 5,000 words for our workshop piece. And we'd have to write 5,000 words for whichever module we were doing. So it was like 10,000 words per term in total. And then at the end of the year, you had to hand in 40,000 words. So it was only her 10,000 that she needed to hand in that she couldn't find or couldn't get hold of, but we had sent her our feedback 3 weeks before, or like 2 weeks before, so she would have had something. I think she got like a 3-day extension and got it in. She was like she was fuming about it, but she got it done. I think it's just stressful, just so stressful. And I remember sitting, because there was one printer that worked like a dream, and there was one printer that didn't. And if you were new, you never knew which printer it was going to be. Like, it was always going to be like one or the two. So I was like, I'm just not going to risk it. I got it done. And I felt really smug, but also really pretentious for rocking up to uni with like my little stack of like cardboard boxes with my work in. But I would absolutely recommend it because it wasn't expensive at all. I think it was something like £11 to get all 3 batches printed. And I know that obviously as a student, leaving your essays to the last minute is just par for the course. But if you're like me and you're like, no, I wanted to get this done, and you can get it done a week in advance. It only takes a couple of days if you're going to send it away and get it delivered to you, it only takes a couple of days. Or just rock up to an independent printer. They will print it for you, and it is not expensive because they're working on such big projects all the time. That's something they will do whilst other things are going on. Like, they'll just get it kind of printed and cut for you. So yeah, I would absolutely recommend.
Definitely done way before the deadline person. So I was done like a month early. I handed it in, and I was like finished, and then proceeded to stress about all my friends who were like, haven't started yet. And I was like, I finished early so I wouldn't feel that layer of stress, but I'm just, secondhand feeling it for everyone who had to do.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a little boy crying upstairs, so I'm just going to mute myself and go and sort him out. So I may jump back in. Well, I will come back.
Right, see you in a bit.
I know he's going to need me, so yeah, I'll come back. I'll just be.
The one thing I want to know is how expensive it is to print in hardback, because I know that printing my Bridesmaid Survival Guide, which is about 200 pages, was basically £4 per book. And obviously the artwork and stuff like that is a lot more on top, which is why I've marketed it at £8.99 like a standard book. But when it's hardback, they usually cost me at cost £8 each to get them through my distributor. So I'm like, do they cost that to print? Like, how much more than paperbacks are they to print? Because I would adore getting my werewolf book printed as a hardback.
I think, because also I don't know when you got Bridesmaid Survival Guide printed, but all paper costs have gone up recently. Like, I think there's been like 2 to 3 instances where the price has risen across this year. So whatever it might cost to print a hardback, it's probably like 2 times more expensive now, which is fun. So yeah, I don't know what it would be like now, but I just know that all the costs have risen for like everything across the board.
Yeah,
which makes sense, but it's also painful.
Yeah, well, I think the price had gone up the first time when I printed it, because I remember Fat Lip obviously was nowhere near as expensive as Bridesmaid Survival Guide was, but then it was also 50 pages shorter, so it could have been either of those reasons. So I don't know, but it would be really cool. I think even if I just get 20 or so printed in hardback, that would be really cool, and then the rest, and just do as a standard paperback. Just do them as like a limited run of hardbacks for me and my pals, you know.
Special edition, first printing.
Yeah, exactly. But then, of course, you know, if I do become rich and famous, then I'd want to get it foiled, and I'd want stenciled edges.
All the editions, all the things.
Exactly. Just make them really swanky. Yeah, I don't have the funds for that, but if I had the funds for that, oh my god, they'd be beautiful.
Oh, I try not to visualize what my final book would look like too much, just because I'm like, I need it to be closer, otherwise I'm going to be sad about it not actually happening like tomorrow.
Yeah, that's fair.
What, like, do you visualize your book already? Like, do you know cover idea already? And
yeah, so Kelly and I have talked about it, because Kelly's going to help me kind of create something. We're not going the classic illustration route the way I did with Bridesmaid Survival Guide, where it was a 2D 3 colors kind of thing. And I find it easy to kind of come up with the ideas that I want for a cover. I'm very, very aware of the fact that if I ever get traditionally published, I will need to release that. That's not going to happen, and that I won't get as much say. And I think I'd be okay with that, because where I've self-published, the 2 or 3 covers that I've designed have been so different from one another that it's kind of like, it is what it is. So I want to have something to do with trees. I want something to do with wolf's teeth, because obviously it's a werewolf story, and I want it to be monochrome, but maybe like a dark green as opposed to a black, something like that. So it's going to be gone.
I see the like dark fairy tale floral cover kind of vibe to it.
Yeah, less flowers, more trees,
I mean,
and woods and stuff. But yeah,
I say florals, but I mean like foliage, like
yeah,
foliage
yeah,
in general.
yeah, for sure. Because I think it's set in a really rural place, and then it somehow finds a more rural setting in the second half. And one of the key themes is isolation. You've got these 2 sisters who are incredibly close, and they grow really distant from one another because of a whole slew of reasons. So I want that to be clear right from the start. It's going to be really obvious that werewolves will be involved, because I've been talking about werewolves since day dot. So the werewolves aren't going to be the surprise. So I feel like I want to kind of build a narrative around the mystery with werewolves, as opposed to it being like, oh my god, there's werewolves, did not see that coming, you know. So I feel like I can lean into that a little bit more, but I don't want it to look like your standard chick lit thriller. I don't want it to be like the isolated house and the big, you know, sans bold title across it. Like, I don't want it to look like that. I want it to look more like a fantasy, more like a creepy book.
That makes sense. Coming from the creator of Gothtober, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I like it insidious. I like it creepy.
I think just thinking we should do one last writing sprint so I can get this 400 words in and hit this goal for today. I hope I can be consistent, and then like if I continue to write 2,000 words a day, at some point I will catch up, because that's more than the average word count. So fingers crossed for this week. But should we do 30 minutes to finish?
Yeah, because that gives us a couple minutes to chat at the end, and then call it.
Yeah, that sounds good. Right till 15:15. That's a bit over 30 minutes, but
it's fine.
Rounded numbers.
Cool. All right. Well, I will see you in about half an hour.
See you in about half an hour.
Oh yeah.
And that's the end of our last writing sprint. Or possibly reading sprint for some people.
Hello. As
Hey,
you can
hey.
see from my hands, I've given up on writing and I'm sewing now.
That's fair. You doing your cross stitch?
Yes, and I've done a very tiny amount. I've been doing it for about 10 minutes and it took me maybe 20 to figure out. So I've done that many stitches. So a while since I've done it. So, you know, when you have to get all the equipment ready and stuff and like I've had to do what you think is basic, but it's quite difficult, this one. The counter was testing me at this time of night.
You've definitely earned your stitches today.
Thank you. I'm going to keep using it because it was motivating. I just kept thinking about it, like desperately wanted to start this. So, and obviously it's going to take me a while based on how much you've seen that I just did.
How about you, Hannah? How did writing go?
Yeah, I think I got another 1,500 words edited. So I have not hit my writing of new words target, but I've managed a total of 6,500 edited words in
Really
general.
good.
So it's
Very good.
yeah, it's weird because where they're in parts. So my chapters are quite long, but they're broken down into different perspectives. So they're about 6,000 words per chapter, but they're broken down into different parts. So it's making sure. At the moment, I'm just going through the detectives chapter parts to kind of be like, just double checking that we've got the facts in the right order. And I'm glad I did because I've got them discussing the ME report before the bodies are even found. So that's not how that works. That needed changing. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I wrote 812 words, but I was so distracted. I took a break. I made a cup of tea. I was like, I'm really struggling, but I reached my goal for today. Just don't think I have any more words in my body to go onto the page.
That's fair. That's fair. It's been a long day.
It has been a long day. I was really tempted to start reading, actually. I found it strange trying to prioritize writing more than reading. And it's happening, but I miss reading. It's not like I haven't been reading, but I miss reading as much as I usually do, but it's still been good to do other things.
Do you find that you can still read and write? Because I was talking about this the other day to somebody, and some authors seem to say that they can't read while they're writing because they feel like they would adopt the voice or they would take ideas and stuff. But reading is so ingrained into me that I couldn't stop. I mean, I'm constantly writing a new thing, so I'd never read, and that would just be too sad. How about you two? Do you find that you can still read and be writing stuff at the same time?
I definitely
tend
can.
to find. Sorry, go on. Say that, Olivia.
I was going to say, I definitely can. I do read different things. Like, I read a manga. I read a horror that's written in the style of nonfiction, so it's kind of not near my book in any formal way, and that helps a lot.
What was that one? That sounds interesting.
The nonfiction style horror, that's World War Z by Max Brooks.
I've just picked up a Max Brooks one. I think it's Devolution I've picked up.
Mm-hmm. It was so creative, and I was just really impressed. I was very impressed.
I haven't read one before. I watched the film World War Z, and I kept thinking that I need to pick one up. And then the blurb of this Devolution one really intrigued me. So I'm quite into things that are presented as non-fiction, but actually fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I'm the same as you, Olivia. I absolutely can read. The reason I'm not reading as much at the moment is because Celine from Stuff Celine Does has set me the challenge of only reading one book at a time, which I'm not going to lie is driving me up the wall because I usually listen to an audiobook, have a hard book that I'm reading at the time, and then kind of like a palate cleanser book that I read just before I go to bed. So I usually have minimum 3 books on the go. And at the moment, I'm only allowed to read one thing at a time. And it's like, well, I want to listen to an audiobook because I like listening to an audiobook whilst I work, but I also want to be able to read something before I go to bed. So I've been listening to my audiobooks and just kind of foregoing the reading before bed. And that's really hard. I'm really struggling. But so long as the book, if I pick up a book and I feel like it's even remotely like the thing I'm working on, I'll put it down. I won't read it because I think my fear is that it will become what I'm reading. Whereas if it's totally different, it's like this isn't going to influence me in the same way. And I do tend to find that I watch more things whilst I'm writing. So I've been getting back into Critical Role and I've been watching a lot of YouTube. And Lizzie and I have been watching Nikita, the TV series. We've been really enjoying that. So things like that, I find I do more when I'm writing. But I also read a lot. I read a lot. So I don't think I would know what to do with myself if I wasn't reading.
Mm-hmm. Same here. I think I miss it too much, even if there is a risk of soaking stuff up. I think I've been doing it this way for so long, but hopefully it's minimal and I won't kind of take. I think I'm quite conscious when I'm writing now. And generally, I'm writing such weird stuff that hopefully there isn't too much that I could accidentally read and be like, oh, yes, this is exactly the same.
Well, the upside is like it helps me with finding comps and stuff because I'll come back later and be like, oh, this book is similar to what I'm writing. So I can be like, it's kind of like this. And it's one of the first things that when I was making my Nano thread on Twitter, I was like, yeah, there's a whole bunch of books that I really like that I feel are similar to what I'm trying to write. So if you like these, you'll probably like what I'm working on.
Yeah.
But I also haven't read those recently. They're not stuff I'm like, yeah, I have straight up stolen these ideas. Hope no one minds.
I don't think you can completely write in a vacuum. I think everybody is influenced by other writers and things that they've played and watched and read. I think anybody who says they've completely invented something isn't probably self-aware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is it? There's that book, 7 Basic Plots. The seven stories you can be telling. So it's going to resemble other people's stuff.
I'm liking seeing how writing has gone. Yay for hitting targets and getting
done,
some
Lizzie.
written. I'm still
I'm
behind
behind
as
too.
well.
Yeah, I am. That's in consolation. Constantly.
I think that is fair. An exam is definitely enough writing for one day. But it's nice you also got some chats afterwards to kind of like chill out a bit. Have a good night. Thanks for joining. We'll also be ending soon.
Yeah, Blue is bothering me because he gets fed at the same time every single day. And Lizzie has had the audacity of staying in her room and writing so that as to not be, winding me up behind me whilst I'm on live. So he's getting hungry and he's getting antsy, that's all. But unfortunately, he only started pestering me after we came off of sprint. Otherwise, I'd have just fed him. Wouldn't I? You were too slow. Too slow. So I'm now going to sit here and growl at you until you feed me.
I can imagine that.
Okay. I'm getting too caught up in this tea. I think I was feeling tired and I was like, do you know what I need? I just need a cup of tea and then I'll go to sleep. But I'm going to be falling asleep on my live. But just wanted to say thank you both for joining me for these writing sprints. I hope they were productive and helpful.
They were. Thank you so much for doing it because I think I've written more than I've written like in a day than for quite a while.
Yeah, it's just nice to hang out with you again, Amy. I haven't seen you since October.
Yeah, no. We just need to keep meeting like this, don't we?
I know. Love
Maybe
that.
real life at some point. Let's do that.
Maybe. Yeah, let's do that. Sounds good.
I think next week sprints will be happening here again, same time. I think you're both on it again next week.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Lizzie will be joining us as well.
Oh, that'd be nice.
But yes, thank you for everyone who's joined and we'll see you in the next one.